This trip to Japan has made me so appreciative of the types of cars that we get to drive. I think a lot of car enthusiasts this day and age, they get a bit cynical. Things used to be better, this and that. Yeah, in certain ways. But being out here in the mountains, you begin to realize that a lot of driving enjoyment is much more accessible than we think. I think many of us feel that the best driving experiences are reserved for only the ultra wealthy who can afford Porsche 911 GT3s, Ferraris, McLarens, other supercars. But being out here with this Honda S660 Modulo X, 6-speed manual transmission, 3-pot, 63 horsepower, 76 pound-feet of torque, 1,850 pounds in the Japanese mountains. I love it. This is incredible. Right now, we're not pushing it too hard because we don't know these roads that well, and it's dark. But earlier, especially when we were ripping on it, I was like, damn, this is all you really need to have a great time behind the wheel. Especially on the tight canyons. A lightweight car like this, low on power, but great inputs, eager to get pushed hard, to get revved out, to be driven hard because the chassis is so good. That's what it's all about. And sure, on the racetrack, this would be a little bit frustrating to drive. You top out on the straights, or just go very slow on the straights. But these cars, I mean, the Modulo X, brand new, I think it was around $25,000, $26,000 US, which, you know, for what it is, it's pricey, but the lower trims of this car, I think they were starting around 16 or 17K. And now, Honda no longer makes them as of 2022. Last year, the Modulo X was the send-off. And they said it's because of changing regulations, it would be too costly for them to invest that into the vehicle, given that the sales have declined over the years. The first year, it was around 10,000, and the last couple of years, it was about 3,000 or less each year. It was quite a sharp decline. But back in the States, we have cars like the Mazda Miata. The current gen is also a fantastic car. I'm actually eager to drive the ND3. But if you want something that is a little bit more raw, you can always go NA, NB, even the NC, which isn't loved to the same degree as some of the other generations. I still have had a riot behind the wheel of an NC as well. Mount Fuji is out here on the left. You can't see, it's too dark. This trip is just something else, guys. I've wanted to go to Japan since I was in middle school. I've always been obsessed with, you know, cars and JDM cars in particular, being a 1990 baby. And finally coming out here, it has really lived up to the expectation. The car culture is fantastic. We're actually going to Daikoku tonight for the first time. For those who don't know, very famous car meet in this parking lot outside Tokyo. Gonna see a lot of interesting cars. But again, sometimes we ooh and ah at these rare, hyper-exclusive cars, or sometimes cars that are just modified very well, especially those that are modified with really impressive pieces, and it takes a lot of time and effort and money. And I respect it and I appreciate that, but don't forget that just getting behind the wheel and enjoying the car on the roads that you enjoy, which for me are tighter canyons. I know some people like high-speed sweepers. That's what it's all about. Even when I had my 2013 Scion FRS, I would rip on that thing in the canyons, and I loved it. And people complained all the time about how low on power it is. Yes, it is low on power. And no, it's not the nicest car to rev out. But don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough, because that car, I think, was good enough. And in fact, after driving the 2022 GR86 that I owned for, what, a year and a half? I actually kind of miss my FRS because it was so raw. Steering was great. Transmission wasn't as good. Engine wasn't as good. Fit and finish wasn't as good, but it was more raw. It was more visceral. Now that I have my Emira, I'm experiencing cars in a different way, because the Emira is now my first foray into the six-figure cars. I mean, barely, just so, right? 100K. And there are pros and cons that come with that. But I haven't lost sight of what it's all about, which is the driver enjoyment. That's actually a big reason why I chose the Emira over the Cayman. But even with the Emira, I'm still eager to get a Honda S2000. The manual transmission, the engine, the chassis. I love that car to death. And even if I could get a Supra or something else that's perhaps more impressive on Instagram or to whoever, who gives a shit about that? I chase the driver enjoyment. I chase the fun behind the wheel. Renting this car here from Omoren, I instantly knew I wanted to drive the Honda S660, because I thought, super cool, mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, lightweight, don't have this in the US. And unfortunately, I don't think this is their most popular, most sought after, or whatever car for people from America. People from America want to drive the sexier, flashier, whatever cars, which is okay, right? I'm not saying that's wrong. The reason I think it's sad is that I think it illustrates that a lot of people sometimes lose sight of what it's all about. It's about driving. Not to say that those other cars that are more popular are not about driving, but this car shouldn't get slept on so much if more people were focused on the driving. You know what I mean? Being so lightweight, being mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, great inputs, Honda, like, it's a joy to drive this car. I love it. I really do. Would I own one in the US after the 25-year, 15 plus 25, what? 2040, would I get one? Probably not. Not because I wouldn't love driving it, it's because I'm just afraid in the US we have these massive SUVs, massive trucks. I don't want to die in this thing. At least in Japan, speed limits are lower, vehicles are smaller. A little bit easier to justify here. And I don't want to come across as this holier-than-thou virtue signaling nonsense, because I hate those that virtue signal and don't acknowledge that they play the game, because we all play the game to various degrees. The game depends on what game you're playing too, but humans fundamentally are status-seeking machines. The status game is played by all humans in some capacity, even those that say, oh, I don't care about money. They're just virtue signaling and trying to get status through their disregard of the more traditional definitions of success. So yes, I am into watches, right? And I like to think it's just because I love the craftsmanship and the beauty and this and that. But at the end of the day, watches, they're a form of jewelry for men. And they're signalers, right? Why do so many men love the Omega Speedmaster? I mean, sure, it has this amazing heritage and story and design and looks, and it was first for, motorsport, and then it became one of the, first watch worn on the moon, and yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, some part of that is to signal to others, hey, I'm a watch enthusiast. I'm a cool guy. I'm, whatever you want it to say about you. But at the end of the day, it still signals something too. You can enjoy it for those reasons, but also acknowledge there is something else going on. It's signaling to other people you're a watch enthusiast. It's signaling to other people that you have some level of disposable income to be able to afford a watch like that, right? And I don't want to paint these things as good or bad, black and white. It's a gradient, right? There's shades to this. You don't want that stuff to consume you. You don't want to be chasing social media prestige and let me have the flashiest car, the coolest this, the coolest that. Because that's a tricky game to play. that's a game that long term you're gonna lose. But at the same time, don't deny that there is a bit of that going on. It's human nature. Because that virtue signaling stuff is intolerable. My friends, thanks for listening to me ramble on yet again. See you in the next one.